Welcome to the AI Applied podcast. Today, Connor and I are breaking down a really interesting story, which is that Google, a number of interesting things. The first one is, of course, ordered Google to essentially kind of divest, sell off, split apart from Google Chrome for antitrust reasons. There's a whole bunch of stuff. We'll dive into it. Connor was recently quoted in a Forbes article about this. If you don't know, Connor is he's quoted by every major news publication all the time. So this is no surprise, but an awesome article, some really interesting insights. We'll dive into that. And also we want to talk a little bit about the actual numbers. So we have some inside scoop into Google Gemini's usage, Meta's AI usage, and ChatGPT's usage, and comparing them all is kind of mind-blowing, if I'm being honest. And some of these are not what you would expect. So we're going to get into that. But Connor, just breaking us into this, tell us about this Google Chrome story. This is kind of crazy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's and I agree. We should be talking about the numbers too because it's so interesting, right? So maybe just a kickoff here because it's a headline and maybe one of these headlines that it may go nowhere, but what we do know is that Google has. I'm not sure if they've been ordered yet to actually divest from Chrome, but it may be leaning in that direction. And I'll tell you, can you imagine Chrome not being a Google
Oh no. Yeah.
product, which would be crazy right off the bat, right? So anyway, so Forbes was asking me about this last night, and I was, quoted in that, and Jane was just pulling up that thing. But it's so interesting to me, right? Because first of all, Google would probably never want to sell to OpenAI. OpenAI was like, yeah, we'd buy that in a second. There's also, Perplexity. By the way, Jane has, I don't think there's any surprise if you hadn't seen that story yet. That Perplexity is also like Perplexity is trying to buy everything, right? Like trying to buy TikTok, trying to buy everything. They don't have the money, I don't think, but the interesting thing to me about this was like, what would it do to the AI landscape, which was kind of the question that was posed to me by Forbes. And to me, I don't know. It's really interesting. First of all, I'm not advocating for Google to break up a ton. I think Google does a really good job, but I understand from the antitrust standpoint. But it is interesting to think about how these browsers are going to look as they get more sort of AI first. I'm hesitant to say AI native because OpenAI, Perplexity, those things are AI native, but I do think that the competing browsers to something like a Google Chrome or something like that will feel and look different. Like right now, and this sort of goes to the bigger point, right, Jaden, which is that Google's in a funny position. So first of all, Google may have the top AI out there with 2.5, but the thing is, most of the world, like Google has whatever billions of eyeballs on it. Most people do not care about AI. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they just have their Google Workspace and all that kind of stuff. And we'll get into that when we talk about the numbers a little bit. But I just thought it was interesting to think, how would this change the AI landscape a little bit? Obviously, it would give OpenAI a huge advantage to be able, because OpenAI is also talking about things like social networks and things like that. If OpenAI can hold people to their site, and a browser would really, really be able to do that. But I'm not, I can't imagine Google would ever, allow themselves to sell Chrome to a competitor like OpenAI. But I do think that as browsers are getting more AI native, Google is trying to sort of like bring along their colossal customer base into a more AI first sort of interface, but it's slow because it makes mistakes and everything else. So that to me is the really interesting thing. When Chrome divests, if they have to divest of Chrome, will it go to like an AI company? Will it go to somebody else? Like I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'd be so curious who has the ability to get it or who they're going to allow to buy it. Because if you search for Chrome and just go to Google News, like I'm seeing all these articles. Perplexity wants to buy Chrome if Google wants to sell it. ChatGPT Maker wants to buy Chrome from Google. Like, the people that could make like some serious money from this, and that would be these AI companies where essentially they buy Chrome and then they just set Perplexity as the default search engine on Chrome. Like, can you imagine the damage that would do to Google? It would destroy them. In my opinion, there's no way this is actually going to happen, but it's interesting seeing this work through. Or even ChatGPT doing the exact same thing. Like these companies have essentially built competitors to Google, and the main thing that Google has right now, aside from like a good algorithm for Google or whatever, a lot of people anyone that prefers these LLMs for answering questions, which is a lot of people right now. The main thing Google has is distribution. They have, Android that has Google as the default. They have Chrome, which is kind of, which was set up with Google, and Google as the default with everybody in the whole world. So like they have these big distribution methods, but if those got taken away, this could seriously sabotage them. And the last thing that I want to say that you brought up is about the numbers. Like if you look at the actual usage on these, so Google and all of these kind of hearings, they had to announce how many monthly users they have. And Google Gemini right now has about 350 million monthly users. Now, Connor and I were talking before this, and you brought up a good point, which is that like what exactly classifies those 350 million users? I think a lot of those are going to be the fact that Gemini is built into Gmail, it's built into Google Docs, it's built into kind of Google Workspace and a lot of other tools. And so like I've used Gemini, like I don't really go to gemini.google.com, but like I've been on Google or I've been on Gmail before, and I was about to go respond, and then it had like a snippet below of a suggested like response, and it was like 2 or 3 sentences. And I was like, hey, that's actually pretty good. And I'm just like, okay, just send that. Like, that's fine. This is just kind of like an administrative email. I don't really care what the tone or anything, just like whatever. And so, yeah, I'm included in that 350 million, but like, is like Gemini my go-to? Is it like am I searching gemini.google.com? No, but they have this incredible distribution and they plugged in, and that's how they've grown it. So when we talk about ChatGPT, they've never had this distribution channel that all these other players have had. And if they were to take something like Chrome, boom, they would all of a sudden have this competitive edge, which would be huge because they announced they have 600 million 600 million monthly active users in March of this year. So that is absolutely a massive number.
That's crazy.
And that could really, I mean, they would crush. If they got Chrome, they'd crush. But I just think it would literally kill Google. So I don't think it's going to happen.
No, but Jaden, this is the point, right? Around those numbers, because I agree. It's a great point about distribution. And Chrome, I think, Chrome has what, like 65% of the market or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's that's in a market that has like Safari and you know what I mean? Like this is like, which comes like native on everybody's iPhone. It's unbelievable what Chrome has been able to do, but it's also just integrated into workspaces that people want. Like this is, Microsoft also has this incredible advantage with Bing, even though Bing has a pretty small share in terms of search and everything else. In terms of Office Suite, you can kind of make the case that they're still going to have, hundreds of millions of people using that product. But the usage numbers, I do want us to all always think about. So first of all, just anecdotally, Jaden, and I might have mentioned this before, but Gemini is absolutely powerful. It's huge. The context window is great. Like it's very powerful. It's doing great things. But most importantly, like some people I like really trust are using Gemini more and more. Again, especially like my colleague, our creative strategist over at AI Mindset, Robert Haslam, he's just like, it's almost like he rediscovered it 2 weeks ago, and now he uses it almost exclusively. And he was a complete ChatGPT guy, which is unbelievable to see. Obviously, he uses all the tools, but like, yeah, and more people, and Andrea is another colleague of mine, and her husband Phil, like was using ChatGPT, and then only Claude, and now only Gemini. So people who use these tools all the time, people are really swamping to Gemini. I'm not talking about people who are sort of still integrated into Copilot or something like that, but just who can choose, like me and you, who are like sometimes use ChatGPT, sometimes use Grok, sometimes use Claude, all that sort of stuff. Jaden, I gotta say, I'm sort of like fading away from Claude these days, just because like, even though I love it, it's ChatGPT is doing a great job and Gemini is doing a great job. But on those monthly users, real quick, what was it? 350 million. Every time, you're just in email and you just sort of like click on Claude. But again, with ChatGPT, they have no other ecosystem where you're already living, where you're just going to like press that button that's closest. I mean, this is why the Meta numbers drove me a little nuts when they said they're approaching 500 million on Meta. I'm like, what? That's insane. That cannot possibly be right, until I realized every time you do a search on like WhatsApp or Instagram or Facebook or anything, like that is Meta AI, right? So do you have to take these numbers with a huge grain of salt? Not that doesn't mean, it doesn't say anything about the product being good or bad, but it just really highlights how unbelievably powerful OpenAI is. They have 600 million users with just an app. It's just an app. There's no email there. There's no browser. There's no ecosystem there. There's no cloud. There's nothing. It's crazy. But this is the other thing with Meta too. Meta has been unbelievably quiet. So when they are integrating all these things into the other thing people were saying who are using the Meta app, or rather using, Meta sort of like through WhatsApp and Instagram and everything else, it was kind of driving people nuts. Like in those sort of contexts, people just want a search. They just want like an Instagram search or something like that. So like all those people, I think there was a backlash against Meta because they didn't want Meta actually integrated into absolutely everything.
100%. Yeah. So I would say take everything with a grain of salt. When you look at the numbers, it feels like, oh my gosh, ChatGPT ran away with the market and now all the other players are catching up. And if we're really looking at the usage, like, yes, there's other players that are growing in the ecosystem, but we haven't seen OpenAI and ChatGPT's growth slow. So, well, yes, more people are using things. I think that is kind of indicative, to be honest, of more people are using more tools. Like I for one have Grok and ChatGPT on my phone. I'll use them for different things. I'm using ChatGPT to generate images because it's kind of the best, and I'm using Grok for some text responses. And as OpenAI has like their new, O3 model, I'm like, sometimes it's better for some things than Grok. So I'm kind of like switching back. But if Grok comes out with Grok 4 tomorrow and it's better, I'm like, okay, well, whatever, I'll just do that. So like I kind of have a few that I'm familiar with that I like, and it's like whoever puts out a new update and I test it, if I find it's a little bit better, I'm like, well, I'm just going to use that until whoever comes out with it. So it's very interesting because I feel like there's kind of low loyalty in these companies. Like I'm not loyal to Grok. If ChatGPT smokes them on everything, I'm going to move over. And I think there's maybe like a 10% forgiveness. Like if something's 10% better, but it's almost the same, if Claude comes out and it's got something that's just slightly better than ChatGPT, and I already have all my chats on ChatGPT with my memory, it's not worth the switch. But if it comes out with something like, there was one point where Grok I felt like was probably like 20%, 25% better than ChatGPT, I just completely switched over. But yeah, I think people are kind of playing this game, but you have to give it to ChatGPT. 600 million monthly users, no distribution channels, nothing to fudge the numbers and kind of juice them up like Meta's using on their Instagram search. You're just looking for a user and all of a sudden you're added to Meta AI's search analytics. So very, very impressive. If this Chrome thing goes through, that'll be huge. Listen, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. If you learned anything new about the landscape of AI, where it's going with this new Chrome court case, anything like that, and you want to say thank you, the number one way, as you know, is to just leave us a review on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It helps out the channel tremendously. Like and subscribe over on YouTube and everything else if you're there. But yeah, anyways, thanks so much, everyone. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.